Hello, my name is Jude. Today I kind of wanted to open up about a topic called what does it mean to be transgender? Now, I'm no homath, so I apologize if I speak incorrectly. I don't have a script or anything. I kind of wrote this all down, and I really wanted to get my thoughts out about it. I have no bias. I will say, I have no bias. I have struggled with gender before and thought I was, to some extent, female or transgender at some point in my life, so I do have experience in this type of thing. But I will say that this isn't attacking transgender, this isn't telling them that they can't exist or anything. It is only to broaden the view, describe the view, and help people discuss about the topic instead of constantly either attacking it or fully supporting it. I think both are wrong and it lies somewhere in the middle. Now, let me begin with saying the definitions, and these are both by Google. Gender is defined as the socially constructed roles, behaviors, expressions, and identities that society considers appropriate for men, women, and non-binary people. Google notes that there is a distinct difference between sex and gender, stating that your sex is in your biology and your chromosomes, while your gender is a spectrum rather than a strict binary. Now, what Google means to tell you by this is that with gender, it is generally predetermined or pre-assigned, but can be binary in a many myriad of ways by stating sex is something that you were born with. So does your chromosomes, your biology, and your reproductive. So it is something that you mostly can't change, but transgender dives into that, and I'll get into that later. And gender is rather a spectrum than a binary, so it's something that you can change, or you can go into, or you can define yourself as something different than you were born as. So it isn't just preset. By Google, transgender, the definition for transgender. Transgender is defined as an umbrella term for people whose genders, identities, or expression differs from the sex that they were assigned at birth. Now, what I'll say, what this means, my personal view of what it's inferring, is it means that there are these two things that are birth. These are sex. So I was born as this, I was born at this. But by becoming this, they can change between these things. And it doesn't just have to be this. And I can actually show you this. Non-binary transgender would be coming from any of these to this. And then any of these can transition to any of these at any point, which means transgender is an umbrella for all these things that are changing from one thing to changing to another. And you were born as these things, but you can become the other ones at any point, or you can become something else. Gender identity in itself is different because you can't become asexual. That is not a sex. Male and female is a sex. There are more, like androgynous, neuterois, non-binary, transgender, transvestite, demigirl, demiboy, bigender. All of these have different sort of connotations where demi means half, transvestite, I wasn't too sure about what that meant. Non-binary was my best guess, is taking these two things and changing into this thing. I think this is having multiple genders. I think this is not having a gender, just like that one. Intergender, I wasn't sure. Transgender, that's the sign. Queer gender, I wasn't sure. Demigender means you partially associate yourself with many genders, but don't stick to one. And bigender means that you're two genders at once. So I feel like both these things at once, which is fine. And to demonstrate this, I put another visual if you still don't understand. We have sex, which is female and male, and in between, if you don't feel like it, then there is non-binary. But generally, it is these two things. You can't change that. That's what the definition says, at least. And then for gender, we have male, female, and non-binary. And by this, we have many branches of stuff. So we can be bigender, which is many of these two things, or non-binary, where you change from this or change from that. You have demi or transgender or all these things, and so on, so on, so on, so on. it gets complicated. So I tried to do the most basic ones to start off. Here's the page. Okay. Simply put, transgender is a transition from a standard conforming or at birth sex to another gender orientation that you may identify with, often being male to female or female to male, which is pretty self-explanatory. That's what I said earlier. Why does this matter? In media, social, and society, we are to refer as any trans-identifying individual only as what they identify as, often leaving the transgender part of their identity behind. And I think that's important. Let me put my phone down. I think that's important for many reasons. Often because, and I'll explain here, often you may hear society call all transgender identifying individuals by their identifiers, rather than their transitioning status, i.e. male to female or female to male, while calling members who identify with the gender they present as at birth as cisgendered or cis male. I find this to be problematic in spaces like sexual identities, gender-specific spaces, identities, transgender rights, and messaging. Let me put my phone down. I find this to be a reason to be a little disconcerting, is as a male who has been male my entire life, I could get behind and understand how someone who is previously female transitions into a male, and I call them male. But in my personal view, it would be a little bit harder to say, oh, you're male and I am also male, because we're different. We're not the same. I was born male while you became male. So there has to be an identifier of someone who is not and someone who it is. That's like saying that I used to be really fat, so I bring health complications, but I got really, really skinny, which doesn't immediately take away all the health complications away. So by not telling someone that, or telling someone something similar, like, I don't know what to compare it to, but by not telling someone something, it feels sort of like deceit or lying, where I was born as a male and someone else was female who transitioned. So I can be called a cis male. I think that's fine, but I would also like to see someone who is transitions be called male to female, or sorry, female to male. That would be a trans woman, trans man. But to take the trans out of the equation and say, oh, trans women are women, or trans men are men, while people who are born as are only cis, can be a bit of a problem. Let me go on. In the media, you may often hear slogans like "Trans women are women," "Trans rights are human rights," "Protect the trans youth," "Trans people belong," "Respect my existence," or "Expect my resistance," or "The identity of trans existence." But at any holy fuck, I just skipped over. Trans liberation now. Often this can help push the visibility or identity of trans existence out into the world. But at other times, it can lead to harmful messaging, discrimination, or against conforming on the respecting trans individuals. Yeah, I think I said that. Sorry, I have really bad writing. Slogans such as trans rights or human rights often include helping those who identify and find rights in the legal recognition of genders they identify with, such as healthcare, public spaces, and equal rights employments. Where this can also go wrong is in places like bathrooms, prisons, detention centers, housing centers, care facilities, competitive sports, single-sex association groups like the Scouts, gender-specific education, or crisis centers, where spaces like these are often built to help the social gathering or the housing of people identifying individuals can have the right to enter these spaces after transitioning. Which I do think is a little unfair, only because I will say this, I'm not trying to get down on somebody, but the biology of someone who transitions from male to female without actually going through the process of transitioning from male to female is different from someone who is assigned at birth, male to female. Now, by the Google definition, if we were to take it at face value and say, transgender is I identify as, therefore I am, so I am now transgender. if tomorrow I become transgender, I have the biology of a male, which a lot of people do. They don't transition from one thing to the another, which is fine. But I think that needs to be stated if you were not going through the process of transitioning, sorry. I wouldn't have enough information on this to like make the judgment call. But I would say typically, I think it's important to have these spaces like competitive sports for women or public spaces for bathrooms. And I think there are a myriad of solutions, and I'm not throwing this out to be like, oh, transgenders need to go to their own spaces or something like that. That was my cat. Hi, cat. But I think it needs to be stated that it's important that transgender, again, needs to be separated from transgender needs to be separated from trans women and trans men to cis women and cis men, because you have different biology. What you have inside you is completely different. If you transition from this to this, you are still this thing. You are just being called it. Now, I respect you as the other thing, but your biology, your sex, and your gender are different, as it is stated by Google. I will get further into this because it is not my personal opinion, but we will read on. When the problem comes in the identifying system itself, where the problem comes in is the identifying system itself, where it's only the person's self-identity, not their sex, that confirms their true identity. Other may draw lines at cross-dressing, surgery, or even chromosomes to define gender. The arguments stating are the necessary requirements to identify or the simple preference of identifying. Now, what this means is something like, I choose how far to go when I say your identity. So if I'm not comfortable with saying, oh, you didn't go through the surgery, therefore you can identify, or cross-dressing is enough, or just simply stating is enough, is how far someone would go. Now, that's what I mean, is based on everybody else's definition, it doesn't have a set definition. Most people would say that, oh, just identify trans women are women, but I do think that's a bit problematic in the messaging. In treating all transgender identifying individuals as only as their identifiers, you can confuse your own gender with your sexual identity. And being sexually attracted to the opposite gender in tandem, homosexuality is I think that's heterosexuality? Okay, homosexuality is described. Okay, and heterosexuality is being defined as someone who identifies as being sexually attracted to the opposite gender. In tandem, homosexuality is described as having sexual attraction to the same gender. I would define heterosexuality as male and female relation sex attraction, while someone who has a one-sex desire desires the other in the same idea. Homosexuality is an attraction towards the same-sex individuals, often involving male on male. I'm like speaking like a website. Male and male relationships, or female and female relationships, desires, and sexual attraction. The sexual attraction being important defined as is by and is as and by the sex. The sex meaning your defined at birth gender or chromosomes, so your biology or your reproductive organs. Now, you can have a myriad of things and you can identify, but you can't identify as having a penis. That just doesn't work. You can make one, you can have a surgery, but you cannot be born with the penis if you are a woman, generally. Now I'll get into this. Now that you understand the predefined and my definitions of sexuality, I'll talk about transgender visibility and sexual identity. Now let's start with the hypothesis. A cisgender man transitions into a female. By Google definition, A cisgender man transitions into a female, by Google's definition of transitioning, and sexually pursues a cisgendered female. By definition, they are both female. Trans women transition, by Google definition. Woman is a woman. Now, this is to say that at any point, any man or woman has to be sexually attracted by sex attracted to the gender, attracted to the gender, to a sex they don't identify with being sexually attracted to. Now, while I find that as the problem is, say, again, a man who transitions into a woman, male to female, gets into a relationship with a woman. Now, by speaking, they should both be women, right? But this one is biologically a male, this one is a female. Does this one have to like this one? Well, maybe. They could like them at first, but after they figure out, is it wrong to say, oh no, I don't like you anymore. I found out that your biology is male. Now, I find this to be a problem because if you're taking it at face value and say, oh yeah, you are a woman, I liked you, but you are a male, I have to ignore this because gender is everything. You are a woman, trans women are women, so now these two have to get together when she clearly feels uncomfortable. Now, I find this to be the reason why is because sex and gender are different, where sex is something you're born with and gender is something you change into. It is not something you were born with. That's what transitioning means, is to change from what you are to something else. I hope that makes sense. Now, by doing this, they are attracted to a gender, At this point, any man or woman has to be sexually attracted by sex, attracted to by gender, the sex they don't identify with being sexually attracted to. In the article, The Dark Truth Behind the Convictions for Gender Fraud, published by New State Man by Alex Sharp, states, a young transgender man, Kyran Lee, received a 2-year suspended sentence after being convicted in 2014 on one count of sexual assault by penetration on the basis of gender fraud. Gender fraud is being described legally as a deceit on false president of your gender, sex by Google's definition, before sex to obtain sexual favors, sexual gratification. Sexual favors, or sexual gratification. The article further states, though, that Judge Michael Heath made it clear that he would have imposed an immediate prison sentence had he found Kyran's motive to engage in sexual gratification rather than the avoidance of rejection and a relationship breakdown, which means that generally, I guess the article kind of goes into, this was a woman, this was a man who transitioned into a woman. They both got in a relationship, but this girl found out that he was a man, or not a man, like biologically male, while they were having, and he penetrated her, and she didn't like this, so she called him out on it. It ended up with court, and he penetrated her. So he has a sexual case of this, but it ended up being claimed that she didn't file against him, I guess, and he got a suspended sentence instead of going to prison because I took a pause from my last recording. I'll probably just stitch these two together. As we go on, this woman found out that this one was a man, but only after sexual penetration in the bed. But I guess the court ruled that she didn't want him to go to prison, and he didn't want to go to prison either. And he didn't go to prison because he wasn't seeking gratification. He didn't want her to leave. Google states that Kyran Lee received a 2-year suspension on suspects of gender fraud and sexual assault on the basis of fear and rejection. We will go on further. Other cases like Gail Newtlin, who received 8 years in Newlyn Clover, reduced to an appeal after using prosthetics. Sorry. Other cases like Gail Newlin, who received 8 years in Newlyn prison, I'm gonna guess, reduced to an appeal after using prosthetics and bandages to disguise her biological sex while in a relationship with a female friend. There was also Gemma Baker, who adopted many male personas to enter relationships with girls online, or Justin McNally, who was convicted of sexual assault after the court and appealed deception to gender fraud after he breached predetermined consent, when it was given beforehand. Cases like these highlight while in both social discrimination and legal cases split your gender and identity different from your biology and your sex, stating there. I write like a doctor, so I apologize if I read really slow. I also have dyslexia. Is sexuality your sexual orientation, or is it your gender preference? Sexual identity should be identified as your own sexual preference, defined as what you desire. Simply put, what you are sexually attracted to. I kind of nail this point home over and over and over again, because I think it's important to split the gender from sex, not combine the two. When you were born as something, this is what you have. When you were given something, this is what you get. Now, if I am born white, I can feel like I am black, but that doesn't mean I can say the N-word. That's not okay. So, if I am born a male and want to transition to a female, that is okay. People can call me a woman from now on. But I have to disclose this, or I am lying to someone. Even if I pass, I will have to disclose that to someone. Now, I don't have to tell them, I don't have to tell friends, but if I get into a meaningful relationship or something important, then you will have to eventually tell them, because that would, I won't say be gender fraud, because I'm not a legality expert. I don't, it's not that I don't care. It's more like, I feel like if I had some form of STD or something like that, before getting into a relationship, before performing with somebody, then I would have to tell them, in the same way that I was transitioned from any point in my life. I was this before, so now I am this. I was this before, so now I am this. Now you know this, either you like it or you don't. And if you don't, I have to go away. And if you do, then yay. Notably, transgender spaces are few, and such as Gate, the Center, Malta, Casa Rose, and while locations like America, New Zealand, Spain, Mexico, and the Netherlands explore transgender visibility, I think a problem arises mainly with most people that transgenders are often allowed into public spaces like bathrooms, schooling, houses, care facilities, detention centers, or detention centers. Now, this isn't all cases, but there are a few and far between cases. I will say personally, from 3 cases I know, there was one case at Disneyland with Lily Trino, something like that, where she took photos inside of a woman's restroom with a video camera where, I can't remember if there was children in there or not, but she was really, really hated on it. There was the women's space with, I can't remember, Dylan Mulvaney, who was on live air talking about women's rights in the White House as like Women of the Year at that point. I won't get into all the other drama behind it, because I do feel I just don't care for the drama as much. And I know Lily Phillips, the swimmer, had trouble with, I can't remember her name, but she was another swimmer who competed for first and entered the bathroom and got nude or naked or something like that. And they could see this, I don't remember the whole interview. You'll have to look that up on your own time, because I didn't list it. But I do thank you if you know any of those references. A lack of supporting these ideals may often label you as transphobic, but disabling any use of these spouses, or okay, any one of these sources based as identity is both discriminatory and unfair segregation solution. Or sorry, I think that's like splitting apart. That's what I meant. Is unfair segregation on trans people, which isn't fair. Solutions like alternate bathrooms, healthcare, education, housing, care, and rights of identification may be solutions, as well as informing or redefining what it truly means to identify, take care of, can sequence of, and the conditions of trans identity. I think what I truly meant there, I kind of wrote it like a madman. I think by giving more information and tools to help assist trans people without directly stopping them. Like, trans people can go to the same schools that everybody else can. I think that's only fair, like how gay people can, and how colored people can, and how all these people can go to school together, because we're all still people at the end of the day, no matter what's in between your legs, no matter what you identify as, no matter what is your color, your race, religion, your anything, you are still a human being. But being in public spaces, especially something like bathrooms or competitive sports or housing or detention or crisis centers, is very important, because some of these are built for the sex, not the gender, to participate in, because it helps these people. Women who are abused by men cannot be around somebody who is the sex of a man, even if they identify as this thing, because they don't know the difference. Okay. I think I got that across. Redefining what it means to be transgender, I think, is the most notable part of what we should do. Now, I'm not saying this has to happen, but I think it would be nicer to happen to help people understand. A wider understanding on the the identity is more spaces for transgender specific individuality, clearer understanding of what transgender laws and rights are, and an increase on healthier messaging may increase the movement and see better visibility. In my opinion, the 5 biggest issues on descending order is children or minors for being part of transgender identity. The expected result, In my opinion, the 5 biggest issues in descending order is children or minors for or part of transgender identity, the expected respect and visibility of transgender individuals' identities, the sexual identity and the expected inclusion of gender into sex, transgenders into gendered spaces, and a lack of clear identifiers or description as to what it means to be transgender itself means to other spaces. To help with these, I'd like to see changes in transgender youth and education on sex and or gender only past 14 to identify or be change your views on yourself, because now you know at least enough about yourself to say, hell, okay, I feel like this, but healthcare should start at 18 or even higher. I wouldn't mind it at 20 or 21. If I can't drink alcohol, I shouldn't be able to permanently change my body. That's not fair. The help or guidance on trans identification without the expectation of understanding or respecting for something someone may not be fully knowledgeable on with, I think would also be a really good solution. If someone doesn't respect this and only respects sex, I don't think you should say, hey, you're a terrible person. You need to die. I am the same as you, because you are not. You have this and you have this, which are 2 separate parts of you. It is not the same thing. Trans women are women. Yes, I respect you as a woman, but you do not have the woman part. No, you can. But it generally depends on if you go through the surgeries or the transition, or if it's just cross-dressing. That's what I mean by the definition needs to be expanded a little bit more, to where there are different types of transgender, to where I transition, therefore I have the surgery and all the stuff, and I am physically, biologically become a woman, which I think is different. And I won't say it's the exact same thing. A transitioned woman will never, I don't think, exactly be the same, because the chromosomes are different, the biology is different, there's a whole lot of different things. We still don't know the full science behind it. It is so complicated. But I will say that if you go through that, I won't try to defend this. This isn't a point I stand on. Yeah, okay. So the expected respect. So if you go through these processes, you must understand that these people have different views. There are some people that will say there are only these things, and you don't have to understand why they think that way. You don't have to respect that they think this way, but you can't be mad that they don't like this thing. There will be people who are like, oh, I don't like that you're black. Oh, I don't like that you're gay. Oh, I don't like that. And that's fine. As soon as they come after you, then you have a problem with it, and you go against this. But if they say, oh yeah, and I hate this and I hate that, they're just people at the end of the day. They're not going to do anything. But saying, oh, I am the same as you, you must accept this right now, or I hate you and you're going to die. I think that's a little I don't think that's the right way. I think the messaging is a little bit skewed on that. Something like, okay, I am trans, I identify as this, and it's okay if you don't understand. This is what trans means. And you explain it to this person, and if they don't understand, that's okay. But you can't expect these things. I would also say that there needs to be a branch, again, on what transgender means. There's two different types. There are multiple different types of transgender where I transition surgically, or I call myself this, or I cross-dress into this. And these are all different aspects of transgenderism, I would say. A better description as what it means between gendered and sex to be better help those looking for a partner to find what they are looking for and are interested in. I would also like to see better. Sex and gender are not the same. Where I am born with this and someone becomes this. I become this transgender. I transition or go back and in between. I keep rubbing my hand across the page because I hope that you guys will understand it that way. What I'm basically meaning is that in sexual identity spaces or spaces where I'm looking for a partner, it can be really confusing because I'm saying, hey, I'm gay, I'm looking for a man, and then you come into my life and then you have a vagina. I think that can be a little bit confusing on certain parts or certain aspects of life, but I won't defend this too heavily because, again, this is discussion. This is not an argument and to say that trans people shouldn't exist. They should. I just think that she should explain it better. Not they, but it should. Better spaces and inclusion for trans individuals in healthcare and education. I would also really like to see. Educating people. Hold on. Educating people on what it means to be transgender, I think, is important. Transgender doesn't have a set and predefined. Hold on. Education on what it means to be transgender is important. Not everybody understands this part. So if you tell people, hey, I am this, and this is what it means, again, they'll understand it better. And healthcare is important because it'll help people who are struggling with this find meaningful ways, whether it be hormones or surgery or all the other things that you want to do. I'm not experienced in this field, again, so if you'd like to help me understand or explain to me what this means or for healthcare, I think the healthcare and the education is important. I think mental health is also important, but that comes separately. Add a redefinition or exploration into trans identity. Again, I've been saying this over and over again, but I think helping people understand what it means to identify as a trans individual and what the many facets of transgenderism outside of, oh, I identify, therefore I am, you have to accept it, I think should be explored and shouldn't be only messaging as women are women, men are men, you have to accept this. I think more, again, educating should be a really big aspect into what people look into. Transgenderism isn't and will never be incorrect. It is not wrong. It is not problematic. But when it feels like it is intrusive, forced, or hurtful, it's hard to support, and it is even harder to relate to. Transgenderism is an identity that you are, but unlike your skin color, or attractions, you cannot change your identity freely. With this new identity must come understanding and patience. I think that's all I wrote. Yeah. So again, I'll finally wrap this up with saying that I think that generally transgenderism isn't something that Transgenderism, unlike sex or your color or your transgenderism, like your sex or your skin color or your attraction or anything like that, you cannot change. But transgenderism is something that you change into, and I think it needs a broader definition because I think a lot of people make mistakes on it and get angry at each other because they don't understand where some people will say, no, nobody is transgender, and someone will say everything is transgender, and everyone who changes is transgender. I think that needs a broader explanation. I think spaces need to be bigger. I think trans youth needs to be looked into, and given better support, I think is the word. And I would like to see exploration into sexual identity with transgenderism be a little bit changed or looked into. I guess that's really all my discussion for today. If you have any thoughts or any things that you would like to do, or if you'd like me to redo this video, I'd really love to redo this video. It is a topic I'm super interested in. I don't hate transgender people. I don't want any animosity. I love transgender people. I love the whole aspect of I feel uncomfortable at birth, so I have to become this, and I think that's really interesting. Like in the mental health space and the what you are, it is so fascinating to see someone who is like, even for me, I don't feel like I am a man. I don't like lifting things. I don't like doing heavy lifting work. I don't like I won't say moving around a whole lot, but a lot of the things that guys will like, I don't like. I like wearing more effeminate clothing. I like playing more effeminate characters in video games. I like the color pink. I like a lot of things, and that's not to say that I'm trying to fit into something, but as gender states, I feel more into my feminine side than I do my masculine side. So I guess with that, thank you for watching. My name is Jude. I apologize that my whole structure was crazy. I apologize if this is going to be a long-ass video, but I hope if you watch it, you'll give me some feedback, you'll talk to me about this, civil discussion, please. This is not an attack on anybody. I love transgender people. I love transgenderism. I love the idea of talking about it. My main thing is I'd really like to see a rediscovering or definition of it, because I don't think it's as simple as I am, therefore I am, respect me. Okay? Thank you. Love all the patience. If anybody watches this, super thanks. I don't get a whole lot of views on my channel, so anybody who watches this, thank you. I'll try to get more into stuff like this, and have a blessed day.